Welcome to the Assembling Inclusion podcast. On this show, we feature different programs, individuals, and initiatives focused on being more inclusive of individual needs. We invite you to learn right alongside us. If you want some additional resources or access to our courses, please visit our website or follow us on social media. But for right now, let's get right to the episode. Coming up next on the Assembling Inclusion podcast.
We like to say that we don't mind being the first at doing things because we looked around and we did research and we couldn't find anything that looked like our setting with career pathways involving special education students, and then also at an alternative or continuation high school. So that was a really big deal. But we don't mind being a first. We just don't want to be the only at this point. So we're hoping that we set an example for others to be able to follow. In
today's episode, we're talking to Brit, Steele, Sherryl Anderson, and Barbara Pastucheck from Growing Hope, an alternative high school program where half of the student population has special needs, creating an inclusive space where everyone receives career technical education. Growing Hope is a really innovative program where students get hands-on experience working with the school's ag tech facility, learning about hydroponic farming and technology, all while building connections and networks within their community. Today's episode is really exciting and offers a look into Growing Hope's program and how it benefits every student that's involved. So let's check it out. Hello, and welcome back to the Assembly Inclusion podcast. Today, we're talking about the Growing Hope project, and we're here with Sherryl Anderson, Brit, Steele, Barbara Pastucheck. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes,
we're really excited to be here.
This will be great.
I'm really excited. So just to start off, I always like to ask, can you just explain the premise of the Growing Hope program for our listeners who may be unfamiliar with it?
So we are at an alternative high school in San Bernardino, and I've been an educator for 25 years. And I came over here from a comprehensive high school, and we had a vision here to create a career pathway for students, but involving at least 50% of the population and the work coming from special education students. So I was able to connect with Night Owl Bay, Brit and Sherryl, and it ended up becoming this beautiful collaborative of where that was a common goal for us to be able to have special education students basically end up being the leaders of this pathway is what it has grown to be currently. Mm-hmm. But that was the original premise for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Sherryl and I, we didn't come from an education background. Our background is more in design and programmatic aspects. And so the beauty of it is we had a little bit of a blank slate, and we were trying to think, well, how would we want to have education, school when we were growing up? And so it was blending these pieces together and taking a much more applied learning approach and something that was looking at emerging industries and future technologies. A lot of times when you're looking at the career pathways and CTE, they're a little bit more on either standardized industries or ones that are kind of a little bit more formalized, not looking at some of the new and exciting things. And so we were trying to think, hey, how are there ways that we can make it so that students really want to engage and want to participate? And because, as Barbara said, it is at an alternative high school, we wanted to make sure that students thought forward to moving on into higher education after high school. So really trying to say, well, what's next? And then working backwards from that what's next into this program.
And so offering students the ability to apply their language arts and math and sciences, but our special education students here at this site are 18 to 22 years old. And so they learn the whole business program too, and being able to market and how to sell a product. But we're using live produce to be able to create this business pathway. So the students take part in the agribiz classes and the business and finance classes, but our students are the ones who actually show them how all of the equipment works, how to maintain the equipment, how to seed, how to harvest, how to package, using technology within the classroom. And all those skills that we've learned are transferable into different areas in the real world. And one of the things that I had brought up on a regular basis with Brit and Sherryl and my concerns and looking forward is oftentimes, especially with moderate, severe special education students, but even special education across the realm in education, we seem to push custodial skills. And there's nothing wrong with being custodian. That's terrific, but not everybody is going to be able to be a custodian. And the sad thing is that even in our own district, our students are not able to pass the custodial exam to become a custodian. So why do we keep focusing just strictly on those skills? We need to be able to have things that offer them more opportunities. And our special education students surprise me all of the time. When we give them a new challenge or we're handing them technology, the opportunities that are available for them expand tremendously. And they are the experts, and their self-confidence is exuding from them, because as we get at an alternative school, there are a new batch of regular ed students who come into the classroom every 6 weeks. And so our students are the experts, and they show them how everything works in there. And they do this with the community too. So we go out in the community and do the same thing, but it gives them many opportunities to use a variety of skills that are beyond vocation and community.
Yes. And I think what's beautiful about when we first started working with Barbara, like Brit said, we didn't come from an education background, and
We didn't know what you don't know.
yeah, you don't know what you don't know. So it was this blank slate. So we're like, why isn't special education part of this? Of course it should be. So I don't want to say naively, but we kind of went into it like, of course it's going to be this way. We didn't realize how difficult it was to have them included, as well as not be off to the side or have separate classes, but they're actually there with the other general ed students. And the general ed students here also, not all of them, but a majority of them are high risk individuals coming from very different backgrounds. And when we decided to create the program, it was something that was in emerging technologies. We wanted to make sure that they weren't dumbed down for them, but at the same time still be able to help with making sure that the quality was good. So we wanted it to be very industry specific, and it was an emerging industry. So initially they were thinking we were doing a school garden, which is what Barbara was asking us for. And we said, can we do something a little bit new and different, since this is new for everybody? And she went for it, and so did the school. And so we're mixed with this beautiful career pathway that has the general ed students feeling like they can participate, where it's not too overwhelming. At the same time, you've got the special education students who, because of the way that they're in the classroom all year round and they're not switching out every 6 weeks, they end up becoming those student leaders that Barbara was talking about. And then we end up doing cross collaboration and cross curricular activities and projects with a very business hydroponic platform. We don't just stay with just the business aspect. We showcase and expose them to very many different aspects to food systems, the whole supply chain, basically. So they get that exposure and then be able to get those transferable skills for all of them to see where they're going to shine.
And it is a constant reevaluation too. So working as a team, it's been really great because Brit and Sherryl constantly challenge the program, so it never stays stagnant. So we're always taking it to the next level. They wrote a farm to school grant, a USDA farm to school grant for us, and then that took us to the next level where we started implementing education for the community. We have this program that we ran. This will be the third year, that school year that we're going to do it. It's called Farm to School. And our students are involved with that. And we have field trips from elementary students who come and visit. We have virtual tour. So the platform, it's common, but there are so many different levels. And it's nice too, because they allow me just to be able to teach. And they come in, they evaluate, they look and see how new equipment's working. And then they will modify for us as we need to as well. So it's been a phenomenal collaborative experience. I couldn't have done without them. And like Sherryl was saying in the beginning, I thought they were farmers. I had no idea. So because they were so good at what they were doing. So I remember asking them, I can ask for this, because it started out with a school improvement grant. And I was just looking at the small garden and small washer dryer to be able to keep things running. And they came across, well, have you ever seen this? And it's a greenhouse that's larger than the classroom, and a multitude of hydroponic systems that allow the students to be able to expand their skills and transform them to different kinds of equipment, but high-tech equipment. So it's a big responsibility.
I wanted to add two last little things as it relates to Growing Hope. One is that even with the challenges we've started to talk about with special needs, Another component is we're located at an alternative continuation high school. And that in and of itself also creates its own layers, not just with the 6-week turnarounds, but if we're going to be doing education in a career technical education arena, there's stackable classes, there's time. So there's all of these pieces that have had to be worked through over the last 5-6 years. The program that it is today, I think, has evolved because of actually the problems and having to advocate and sit with it and get people on even clear up at a state level to come down and say, hey, look, these are really our challenges. These are our students and these are vulnerable students. And we need to be able to answer what's next. Absolutely critical. So that was the first piece. The second piece was, why pick, for example, hydroponics? And part of that is, you come across these statistics, like in California a while back, we needed 1 million new middle skill jobs, STEM related, these types of things. And so my background has a bit more of a STEM background to it. And so I know that basics of STEM, unless you're going to computer science, which is more Sherryl, then you're going to be doing biology and chemistry and physics and organic chemistry. It's a primer because in controlled environment agriculture, you get exposure to all of that. And so it's not just growing. I think in the beginning, one of the questions that we had was our area, it's a fairly heavy minority population area. And so we were getting questions of, well, are you just making more migrant farmers? I mean, that's really the start spot. It was that it doesn't necessarily have value in the long run. And so trying to design and show and advocate for something that says, hey, no, these kids, they deserve to have something that a university setting can come in and participate just as easily, which they do. And that creates that crossover, which then creates a pull for somebody saying, oh, wow, I can do something more than once high school's finished and working at, say, McDonald's or something like that. I can go and move on into different careers that are neat and exciting and growing and needed in our area.
We like to say that we don't mind being the first at doing things, because we looked around and we did research and we couldn't find anything that looked like our setting with career pathways involving special education students, and then also at an alternative or continuation high school. So that was a really big deal. But we don't mind being a first. We just don't want to be the only at this point. So we're hoping that we set an example for others to be able to follow. And strictly now in our district, there are other special education teachers who are getting their CTE credential. And so they're learning how they can fit their students into different career pathways, or maybe looking at creating a new one at their site to be able to involve special education students that go beyond like the typical custodial skills, and allowing those students to be able to expand opportunities for them as well.
Yeah.
So
the Growing Hope project started as a big collaboration. It was a collaboration with the district, the principal and the school here, the teachers, to even facilities, maintenance and operations. They all helped to put this together. And if we didn't have that support, the program probably wouldn't be what it is today.
That's really great. I was obviously initially drawn to the program because, my focus has always been disability inclusion, but I love that they're doing so many amazing high-end technology-based things that I was like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. So I have a question about, you had talked a little bit about like the structure. You had said that the general education population is rotating every 6 weeks. The students who are in special education then become the experts and they kind of stay and then teach the new incoming group of students. How are the special education students assigned to a specific sector? What are the different sectors they could be a part of?
there are students who are remaining with classes. Usually it's early in the morning for general education students to come in, but then even throughout the day, if other teachers want to come in and maybe have a math project or a science project in the classroom, they can either utilize the teachers and the students and night all day within the classroom, be able to get some assistance with that. A lot of our special education students, along with the general education students, are also focusing on going out into the community where we do deliveries to the restaurants. So we have several restaurants who are our partners in mostly over in Redlands, Olive and Citrus and the Caprice and the Citrone and the Moo restaurant, Escape Brewery, Oscar sometimes. And we're always looking to expand as much as possible. And a lot of these restaurants just buy a small amount of produce from us However, the connections and the relationships that we're building with the community is important, and we're looking to expand more around the local area of our school as well. We want more job opportunities for students, for them to be able to explore. So maybe you're working at a restaurant, maybe you're working in management, maybe you are going to be a business person yourself, maybe you're going to want to work in education. Like I was saying earlier, with the farm to school that we have, it's about a 6-week program. Students are given the opportunity to be able to teach and work with younger children as well. It's not limited to just teaching the equipment that's in the classroom. It's expanding out into the community as well. And we're working with other local farmers too on soil farming and what does that take? And then we also work at some of the farmers markets where we sell some of the produce. We also rent out our services with some of the equipment too. So for aesthetic purposes, we have some of the lettuce grows or the tower gardens out at the different sites, and we charge a little maintenance fee to be able to maintain the equipment there. So part of that is that rental business too. So that way, how do you market that? How do you advertise that? How do you charge for this? So learning a little bit of the monetary skills too.
And even the marketing side. There's a lot of her students. We picked business because it's kind of a catch-all and they have the ability to be exposed to certain things. And one of her students, David Paniagua, for instance, is very good with video editing and photography. And so we've had him put stuff on the blog. We've had him do video footage and photography for it. They help maintain the website. They do research for that with the QR code. So that way, any of the produce that we sell, they're able to showcase what they've learned about the plants that they're selling. It encapsulates very many different aspects when it comes to running a business.
And then we have another pathway here. So
Yes.
it's the health and science pathway. And that pathway overlaps with what we have too, because we're talking about health and nutrition and cooking.
Yes.
And just general healthy lifestyles. And students have to do research on the plants, the history of the plant and the benefits that they get from it nutrition wise. I think that they learn a lot from that, and then it helps to cross over with it too.
That's right.
And the site itself is designed to be able to have it where either it can be a mixed class that's being done, or it can be strictly general education or strictly special education. It's a flexible learning environment. There's a large lab. It used to be a boys' locker room that got retrofitted.
Mhm.
And then there's also an outdoor area that has different teaching areas within the outdoor area, along with a commercial greenhouse. The idea behind that is to make it so that on any given time, you have 3 high school classes. They can either be working together or they can be doing separate things. The teachers can be coming down, as Barbara was saying. You can be doing different types of applied learning crossover with math or English or something along those lines. It's about providing the flexible learning spaces and the environment for having these interactions to take place. And for example, with Farm to School, when the elementary students come in, the school's still running. Students from here are still interacting. Probably one of the biggest was you guys had 95 elementary kids coming through, along with all of the regular students. So the size of the project and in the site itself, we've had to grow it to be able to handle that type of a flow, and where it's not incredibly disruptive to an educational environment. It's just a natural process of this is how it goes through, and you kind of rotate through back around, and then you head on out when you're done working or engaging with the different components here.
Yeah, and the students, like we said, we've watched how they interact with the different stations and everything. So, okay, it needs to be more accessible to 5th graders and kindergartners. And then, she has a couple of students that need wheelchair access. So making sure that all of that is accessible for them to participate was really important for us when we were doing the design for the different areas in the ag tech facility.
Not to mention the future that we're looking for now of we're using 90% less water, and that we know that vertical gardening is part of the future of being able to increase production worldwide. And we are using commercial grade equipment within the classroom. And the next step is, which we had planned in the beginning that we haven't gotten yet, but we're looking forward to it, are solar panels and wind turbines. So we can get to close as possible zero net energy. And then that is another platform for students to be able to work on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really exciting. There are so many things going on in like your one space. So that's really incredible that the students have access to all those opportunities. And then even the elementary students, you had mentioned a farm to school program. So that is working with all the students in the district. The elementary come in and then they can kind of learn about what's going on. And that also benefits then the students who are there because they get to teach too. What other advantages have you seen to that program?
It's been created to where it's district wide. And so teachers can opt in. And so with Brit and Sherryl, they came up with the whole concept. The kids have hands-on materials within their classroom and activities that take them through the 6 weeks. So it's one activity 1 week where they're maybe growing basil seeds in a glove and hanging that in the window. And then there are activity sheets and lessons and books and games that go along with that.
Yeah.
And the teachers can kind of pick and choose what they want when they sign up for it. And then there is a virtual speaker at the end of the week. So we call our Farm to School Friday.
Yes.
And so sometimes we're in person with the speaker, like sometimes we had a chef come out and cook live, and we have elementary students in the audience and some of the high school students in the audience, and then virtually people get to tune in. So the live interaction is really neat with the speakers because the students can then ask questions right then and there. If not, I mean, Sherryl does this phenomenal job of, we have a library that they can access. So now we think we have 3 or 4 years of
virtual speakers.
Because we started that before we started Farm to School.
Yes.
And then you can watch a presenter talk about how they're applying science and maybe hydroponic systems, or how they're applying science to gardening, or how we're addressing food deserts. So they've been really creative. They have found all the speakers and brought them forward. And then it's been a fun collaboration of being able to interview those people live. But that is a huge benefit for all of our teachers. They get that interaction, and the students get to hear it from other people instead of just the teachers or the staff who are on site all the time, because we tell them it's important that you come to school on time. We tell them it's important to have good hygiene. We tell them it's important that they have manners. But to hear it from other people in the world who are actually already doing this is much more meaningful to them.
With Farm to School and what we submitted to the USDA, it was a beautiful plan. And then COVID happened. And so again, it was like our district went to all virtual learning. And so how do you shift gears? How do you still make it a learning environment and engaging?
Yes.
How do you take this site that's designed really to be in person in many ways and turn it into a virtual space? And thankfully, from the beginning, we had been planning to do that so that it had those capabilities. And so COVID was a good opportunity to start shifting those gears and building that aspect of it. This is year 3 of Farm to School.
Yeah.
And you wrote most of that, Sherryl, and been doing most of it. I think it's 26 elementary schools were last year.
Yeah, 26 elementary schools, K through middle school, and then a couple of high schools participated, but it's mainly designed to learn where your food comes from. And what was great about COVID was nutrition services allowed us to use the produce that we were growing in the greenhouse and distribute it, so that way the students who were taking Farm to School could see what was actually being grown. So they could see it virtually, and then they can actually have it at home to taste and take home and then utilize the activities with. So that was really helpful.
It sounds like a really great program that's mutually beneficial for everybody involved in the district. That's really great. I'm going to back up just a second because I wanted to ask about, you've mentioned a lot of different aspects of your agricultural center, or ag tech, you said ag tech center. So I saw on the website that there's 4 stages of Growing Hope, right? There's 4 different sectors or phases. Can you just explain what those kind of are and how students are receiving different resources and access to career pathways through those 4 stages?
It's a really good question. And it's one where the thought process behind it is, how do you take and make something applicable, not just for that class, but where it's applicable across the board? Then it relates to, for example, our environment. Where does it relate to industries and jobs? And then how does it make sense? Because that's how you really are learning. You're not learning, oh, well, I mean, I don't know if any of us can do the quadratic equation still, but I know we had to do it in school an awful lot. And so the thought process is, how do we really look at something and think about problem solving? How are we going to adjust for climate change? How are we going to do some of these big macro issues, but then saying, let's bring it back down to a student level and one that's more person-centric so that it makes sense and it relates to it. And so there's 4 stages. And the first stage is, how do you create or harness energy? One way you could look at this is just imagine a big long wall, right? And you can see on this wall, that's basically, you can look at it from a form of an equation. First off, we're getting our energy from the sun. And then what does that mean? How does that work? Most of our focus is on renewables. I mean, we don't really kind of say, hey, well, let's go in and look at
Raw materials or something like that.
Well, I was thinking more fossil fuels or things like that.
Yeah.
So in this case, with Growing Hope, a lot of it centers in that first stage, which is, how do you create or harvest energy? And in this case, we're using the sun to grow plants, and it is a form of stored energy. It may not be in a solar panel with batteries, which is what Barbara's referencing, why we need those wind turbines and the solar panels, so that we can really kind of create a full picture as to what section 1 looks like. And then section 2 is, well, now that I have energy, what do I do with that? And there's all kinds of different components to that. If it's, say, stored energy in the form of a battery, that's part of what leads us to being able to do this right now and today. If it's in the form of a plant, at that point, you're converting that into something else. Either it's a food or fuel or fiber. It's some component to that. And then the third stage is, how does energy impact us? And so now you're getting into your health and wellness. Now you're looking at different components of environmentally around us. How does that work? And then the last stage is, well, what do you do with it when it's gone? And can we recapture it and reuse it? And so that's looking at recycling and these types of things.
Composting.
And so this was a big, overarching, very large goal in the beginning. It was thought of as more of a theory or a guiding principle behind it. And you know, what's neat is over the years, this lens has become more and more thought of, more popular in different versions of it, but clear in, oh, well, as a community, we need to build resilience, or as a community, we need to do these types of things. So that part is really encouraging that it's kind of on the right track. So when you look at those 4 stages, you have to come back and look at, well, how is it applicable? How is it applicable in a CTE career cluster pathway? Because at the end of the day, a lot of this education is really about, how do we go towards economic development? How do we do workforce development? How do we create it so that students who become community members are able to live a happy, healthy, vibrant, fulfilled, and meaningful with well-paying work life? I mean, we live in California. Well-paying is a core component of that. And so this cycle is really about kind of how you look at that. How then do you put your jobs on that? How do you look at putting on your economy? And then the other components that we look at are social determinant factors of health. And so how does this play out even into policy? So it's really more of a lens of how you approach something, and then take that big lens and you kind of narrow it back down, and Growing Hope then kind of touches on some of those pieces. The size of the school facility, you can't just do 25 career pathways. That's not effective. And so that's why in and of itself, it doesn't have it. There's a direct focus in agriculture, in business, and in science. And then, of course, with the other pathway in health and wellness. And so these are very much focused on, but it gives the opportunity to say, oh, well, what's next over here? Or how would this fit from here to here? That was kind of the original concept behind the 4 stages. And interestingly enough, when you go and you talk to, like, say, a district CTE individual, it has a siloing type approach. I'm going to do this, and this is here, and this is going to lead to 8 jobs that go directly over here, and we're not going to deviate from that. But in this case, this pathway is special needs as well as alternative continuation students. If that specific way worked before, a lot of these students that are general education students wouldn't be here. We have to come at it, and we have to look at it a little bit different. And so this approach, the 4 stages, is really like, how do we look at it from a broader, more mixed view? But at the same time, we can't just say, oh, well, it's all wonderful rainbows and everything everywhere, and we don't have any sort of focus that goes and drives to some conclusion, some metrics, some ways of saying, hey, this is how we can actually take a student from here and help to move them over here to where they're empowered. And this is where they want to go with their life.
I was just going to say, you reminded me, because of that lens that we do, it makes it easy for other career pathways to be able to cross collaborate with Barbara and her students and the pathways and the students here. So we've had the manufacturing pathway come in middle school and do a project.
And elementary.
And
So,
elementary,
yeah.
yes.
And we're reaching out too, because, being a career pathway teacher, I'm part of some of the district-wide meetings. And so talking to some of the other teachers who are involved in that program, they're wanting to reach over and take part with us as well. We know that we are touching many areas with the other pathways, and they've been reaching out. And then I'm part of another program that's the demonstration teacher program. We reach out to each other as well to collaborate. So one of the other teachers I work with is in the demonstration teaching program too, and she has manufacturing. So then she creates some of the pottery and some of the advertising that we do for some of the events that we go to. So that way we can put a live little seedling in as one of our little giveaways, or as an example for people to be able to see what we do live inside of the classroom.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask, what do you think has been your biggest, or some of your biggest successes for your students that have come through this project so far?
Well, I guess there are a lot of different levels to hit with that, but one of the really big things is that we have some students. We work with our regional center out here, Inland Regional Center, and our students have been able to enter in some of the paid internship programs. So general education students are able to partake in an internship with Night Owl Bay to continue some of the work for the next year or two while they're going to school, or they're, at a community college, or while they're attending over at Inland Regional Center. So I'd say that's really big for our students. And we, right now, one of the restaurants wants to hire some of our students because we're out there on a regular basis. So, already saying I have some openings. So I'd like to start looking at some of your students who would be employable. So that is a huge success rate. The fact that we are teaching in special education, particularly additional skills for our students, that has been very close to my heart. Brit and I've had a discussion about this since the beginning. I want my students to be able to come out making a livable wage. So living strictly off of SSI does not allow them to do this and be able to live in a nice apartment with a roommate in a nice neighborhood. I want them to be able to live comfortably. So exposing them more to the community and to the real world gives them more of these opportunities, and the self-confidence that they're building with being able to work with the community and the general education students here at the sites have afforded them that. But then when I look at that, our general education students need that same opportunity, and their self-confidence needs to be built, and they need those community connections as well. So it has opened up more, I think, for both sides, general education and special education students in this program. And then I'd say one of the other things that I'm very excited about too is we are getting ready to have a nice contract with our own nutrition services here in San Bernardino City Unified, where our lettuces are definitely going to be hosted here in our own salad bar at lunch at this site. But we'll also have little spotlights at different schools throughout the district where the students, it'll be advertised. So some of the schools that are participating in Farm to School, then they'll be able to taste the lettuces live. And one of the things that we noticed too, all of the students all the way across the board, TK through 12 plus,
Yes.
that when they're growing the produce, or if it's something they've been part of, they definitely want to try it. They definitely want to taste it. They're not as afraid of it. And so one of my favorite things is we were growing these small turnips, and a lot of our students hadn't had turnips before, but they're almost fighting over each other to take home the turnips at the end of the day. And I don't think they would have tried them had they not grown them themselves. So eating more things like spinach and understanding how basil and rosemary and thyme and adding an oregano to your spaghetti sauce, that's what makes it taste like spaghetti sauce, and it also adds all these health and nutritional benefits to it too. That is another big win. Like the expansion of nutrition for our students is a really big deal too. And it's not just all finger foods of burgers and burritos and French fries. It's like,
Right.
these are the things that make food taste good, and they're real dishes and real things that you have to prepare outside of a microwave.
And the other thing too is like seeing some of her students come in, or any student, it doesn't have to be necessarily special ed, but seeing them come out of their shell, being able to present and be comfortable being in front and do public speaking, because we do a lot of site tours, a lot of we call it dog and pony shows, basically, where everyone's coming in to take a tour and then showcase what they've learned, and seeing them come out of their shell. Some of our students weren't verbal at all, and then seeing them be okay with being in front or even asking questions has been amazing to see. When they do their projects with other general ed students, like you see them passing in the halls and everything, and they're talking to each other, and something that you wouldn't normally see initially at the beginning of the year, but now that they've been able to do something, they're sharing a love for something and a labor of love for something that now that they're able to communicate and connect with. It's been that really helps, I think.
Yeah, the collaboration opportunities are phenomenal. We've talked about that incessantly, that our school board members, our administration here, our own principal has really helped us out. The other general education teachers who are here on campus, and to collaborate with them, our maintenance and operations, our nutrition services. I mean, the list is really long. Transportation, yes.
Yeah.
And even now starting to work with some of the community colleges and then UCR extensions that these two are doing here, like so many connections out there within the community. And just our relationship and business partners here with Night Owl Bay. I mean, it wouldn't have happened without them, because I'm a teacher. I have to teach the entire time. To have this group come in and really work with us, it has been incredible, because we've had other business partners and it isn't the same success story on this kind of level at all. The amount of work and drive that they have to be able to support. And like I said, this shared vision of having special education involved on this level is what makes it successful.
The commitment to it.
Yes.
Yeah, now one of the projects that we're working on is we've realized that we need a longer training and support window once students age out from here or they graduate. And so there's been a focus for 3-4 years of we need a community commercial training center, commercial capacity to do this, to get it so that we're halfway, and then it's moving into the workforce for it. From this project, there's just been some amazing stuff and partnerships, and there's a regional training center now that's getting built that this project here is heavily participant, and it's a feeder for that. It's clear from the kindergarten and elementary level, we're trying to create something that goes all the way through into the workforce, but yet then in the workforce, those are still our business partners that are participating in and helping to guide and lead and cheer and support and advocate for this. In the end, it creates this community cohesion that I think is really wonderful. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. One of the things you were asking about with the successes, I mean, there's been some really neat awards that you guys have gotten off of this too. I mean, I can think of, at least from the design perspective, there's been 2 national awards from the architecture firms. The architecture firm, they were really great in letting us help design it, participate with it. They looked at, hey, you're the end users. And so it really helped to create a good collaboration. So there was a couple awards there. There was a bunch of
you got a demonstration teaching award for
the golden Golden Bell Award. So we were part of that too, and special education. So that was a really big deal. And and ISTE came out, and we're part of their learning strategies that they have on there. We have one segment on there that our students are recorded in. We have our Primus certification, which is huge. That they drove us to get in the right direction to do and led the way, so that way we could just get training as educators with it. But this Primus certification is a global food safety certification, and we are currently the only, but like again, I said, we like to say the first to have this Primus global food safety. It is worldwide, it's global, it's international, and that's a very big deal for a K-12 to have right now. So that's very uncommon, but it lays the foundation for others to be able to achieve this as well. So they can come to us, they can look at us and see how we do it. We get other educational facilities who come out and visit us and tour and take a look and see what we have, and then see how they can do mock-ups as well.
It has been model school twice now from some of this.
Oh, and we have our Link Learning certification too. So we're the first alternative, and then have special education. So silver Link Learning certification. We're going to get the golden this year. we know we're getting gold.
We've been working we've been working really hard and having those conversations with Link Learning so that way we can participate and have that accessibility.
It's just affirming that, after a lot of years of really coming up against some very hard challenges and then solving those challenges, that you're really seeing some of these results to where it's like, yeah, okay, what is this? This makes sense. Because for so long, it was paper and it was meetings and paper and advocacy and these types of things saying, hey, this matters, these need to be done. And so then to get this finished and then to say, oh, well, now we can see it. We can understand the methodology behind. We can see why these things are important. It's just neat. It leads to everything else that Barbara and Sherryl were saying. Those are, for us, those are the tangibles. Those are the really neat things that to see a student come through and to thrive and grow.
I wanted to add one more thing too, because one of the things that I heard with the families of your students is that it not only helps the student individually, but it helps their families as well, because now one of their students that would be at home sitting, or their son or their daughter is now engaged in going out in the community, their confidence, their happiness level. They feel a lot of accomplishment and being able to go out, and it allows their family members to be able to have the confidence to go and do other things and be productive in the community.
It's nice, because again, working with Sherryl here, she has came up with this idea a few years ago. So we have testimonials from our general education students, our special education students and their families. And so these are nice, especially for special education. So that way, when parents, when they're going in special education and elementary, they want to know where their student can go later on in life. And these testimonials help show that there are success stories coming out, because I think a lot of parents don't really know at elementary, especially for special education, there's no traditional track of like, I'm going to get my high school diploma, or I'm going to go to community college, or I'm going to get my GED, or I'm going to go to a 4-year university. It's not the same. And like I said, it's always been a push towards custodial skills, which that's just not enough for all of our students in general. And that may not even be their passion of what they want to do. Not to mention, a hard job to get. It's not something that's simple. It's very complicated with chemicals and how to create or do a run sheet for a facility as big as a school. There are many, many levels to that. And here, the opportunities are limitless, I feel like, with what we're doing, because we're always looking, like Brit said, it's not just singular and focused. We're putting our fingers in a lot of different pots and seeing what we can do for students and what opportunities we can offer for them.
It's like an IEP for career pathways.
Almost. It is.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all of those successes. And I think that it's clear that the project and the program is doing amazing things for so many involved parties. So I wanted to thank the three of you, Sherryl, Brit, and Barbara, for joining us today and just for sharing everything about Growing Hope. I really appreciate you telling us all about it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
you for having
you.
us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Assembling Inclusion podcast. I hope the information in this episode taught you something new, gave you a new idea, or showcased a new perspective. If you liked the episode, feel free to leave us a review or comment. If you have a recommendation for an individual or an organization who would make a great guest, you can message us on Twitter or Instagram, or send us an email at assemblinginclusion@gmail.com. See you next time.